no further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker. Sheriff Nanos has been in the Pima County Department for over 35 years, so a very experienced young man. Thank you. He was elected in 2020. He was appointed sheriff in 2015 through 2016. He was the chief deputy between 2014 and 2015. He held a number of high ranking, I'll let you explain all those. My question for him is, I know when he ran, he had 4 areas that he wanted to really work on. We're curious to how far you've gotten on those areas. The first one was providing deputies and officers for body cameras. The second one was create a regional critical incident team to handle investigations. The third one was create a community board to assess department policies. And the last one is reduce the population of Pima County Jail. So if you could answer any or all of those or none of the above, that would be great. So Sheriff Nanos, please welcome
Penmanship doesn't count. Trust me.
So that is my cell phone. I give it out everywhere I go. If you work for me, you should be able to have access to the boss. And if I work for you, you should be able to have access to me, your subordinate. So there it is. Text works best because if I'm in a meeting, I can always answer it. And I'm in a lot of meetings. But if you call me, I won't answer the first time it picks up because I won't recognize the number. But if you leave me a message, you'll be surprised how fast I call you back. So that's for anything at all. You're welcome to call or text me or chew me out or give me an attaboy. So I got a guy here with a camera, and he's going to really have a hard time following. To the 4 questions, let's just get those over with. Well, before we go there, I want to say something to you all. I don't think I've been here in front of this group since 2020 because of the pandemic and maybe a Zoom meeting or something I might have. But so in person, it's nice to see you all. I want to thank you for supporting me in 2020, and I hope that the work we're doing will earn your support again, because I do plan to run again in 2024. Not everybody's happy about that. But we'll deal with them too. I'll talk to you about that. So first of all, the first question was, again, well, let me see if I can remember. Body-worn cameras. We got that done, and it wasn't just me. It took a big shove from the Board of Supervisors, so they had to approve basically a $30 million project to get every uniformed member in our department body-worn cameras. But it's needed. Trust me, it's really a big need. And the men and women out there love it. They're in our jail. All of those correction officers, every single one of them have the body cameras. They too love it. So that was an easy push.
Critical incident team.
Yeah, the Pima Regional Critical Incident Team. So 2020, we had for the last few years, we've had some horrific incidents in law enforcement. Horrific incidents from law enforcement. The George Floyd incident, there's others, and we continue to see them. And we believe that, I've always said that my team does the job 99.9% of the time right, every time. But if I really believe that, then I shouldn't have any concerns about when we've done something that's concerning to the community. I should be able to turn that over to anybody and say, come and look, come and investigate it. And when the years passed, and it was just a system that was put in place in law enforcement throughout the nation for many years, what would happen is, say if an officer got involved in an officer-involved shooting where he shot somebody, we would come out and investigate that shooting. in two areas. One, criminal, but also internal. And I don't need to tell you how the lens there just doesn't look good, right? It's not very transparent. But yet I would always do that and tell you, look, my guys do a good job. And so there was a great demand, rightfully so, for transparency. And so when I got on board, the first week actually met with all 11 chiefs of police in this area in the valley. There's some very small agencies, but all 11 of us, and we continue to meet monthly, we talk weekly, a great relationship, probably the strongest relationship I've ever seen with all the law enforcement in this valley. And we decided that we would put together a regional incident team that would stand up, and whenever there's an active officer-involved shooting, that agency would step aside and let all the other agencies come in and handle that investigation. The participating agency, the shooting agency, they would kind of parallel that for their own internal reasons. They might see some issues with their policies or their practices or procedures that they need to be aware of. But we came in and looked at these things as a crime, and that's what it really is. Anytime you have somebody shot, injured, killed, you still have a crime regardless of who it is that did that. And we have to either justify it or charge you. And so in those cases, I think we've had probably, I don't know, maybe a couple of dozen now, and it's worked out tremendously. In fact, it's worked out so well that we think that we are now, again, back at the drawing board with the active shooters at your schools. So we've talked to, well, again, there's 11 school boards in the Pima County area. We got together with all 11 school superintendents just last summer, and we decided that after seeing what we saw at Uvalde, we said we can't have that. Nobody was on the same page. Training was all over the place. Nobody seemed to know what to expect from each other. So we called in all the chiefs and myself, called in all 11 superintendents. And what I found interesting was, it was the first time that those 11 superintendents had sat in a room together, ever. So it was interesting. But they too sat there and heard our concerns, and we decided that we need to do something now. And again, as a regional effort, we're focused on three things. One is our response. How do we respond to these? Everybody should be responding the same way. And fortunately, that was easy. When you're a cop, typically you might have a call where you're going to a call, maybe it's a bar fight, and you're on your way to the call and you wait for your backup. Typically on bar fights, it's not a bad idea. You let them kind of beat each other up. Get tired out when you get in there, you might have a chance, right? So we get there together. But in an active shooter, particularly when it's those little ones, defenseless ones, it's not every minute counts. It is literally every second counts. So we have to be able to respond there quickly, and you cannot wait for backup. You have to address the threat. No matter who you are, you need to go and take out the threat. And hopefully you get enough backup there eventually where everything ends peacefully and safe. But in these kinds of situations where you have schools, kids, teachers, we need to be on the same page with those people too. So the second piece to that was not just our response, but the schools need to know and understand what our response would be like and what they could do. So there's a lot of training and education going on, and we talk to our schools about things like threat assessments. You know, one school might say, hey, we got a picture here of this kid online, and he's saying, to heck with this high school, I'm really mad, and there's nothing really there. But you might also have another school sit there and say, hey, we have a picture of a kid, and he's saying, F this school, I don't like it, and tomorrow you people better watch out you're in danger. And so one school may call us for one may call us for both, one may call us for none, for either of them. They may feel like they can handle it. So we need to get them to understand that there's a basically matrix, if you will, to follow, and that every school, it's kind of interesting, we asked the schools, all 11 superintendents, to give us their threat assessments. And when they did, they were pretty close. Some areas were a little different. We asked them to look at each other's, because they had such pride in their own work. Said, put yours down and look at somebody else's and tell me what you like about theirs. And all 11 of them came up with some of the same ideas. So we put that together. So we know now that if something happens at this school, we can know that, and the schools know, they're to call us and we're to come out. And it's just, there's a lot of complexity in this because each school district has its own temperaments, different parents they got to deal with, I mean, it's a large, just the county has some 33, in my area, 33 different schools. And so we want to put school resource officers in all of those schools. But that takes a lot of staffing, and that'll be what I'm interested in. So in a regional effort, I think I am very impressed with my regional partners. They've done a great job working with us. And we've got training. We actually had, I think it was Los Angeles Police Department or Sheriff's Department came out here and trained us on some 72, 73 detectives on how they handle their regional incident teams for officer-involved shootings or critical incidents, such as an active shooter at school. So we're getting some of the top training, and all of us are on that same level. So that's a good thing. When I came on in 2021, I was so excited. I left here in 2016 and there were some efforts in reform efforts. Way before George Floyd, but we were moving along as a county. And I was kind of excited with that effort. But it even grew. They actually had a Pima County judicial reform director at the county administrator's office, and they had Pima County jail reform and reduction population and all of these great political rhetoric. Because when I came to sit in the room with them, and them being judges, attorneys, county attorneys, prosecutors, defense attorneys, commanders from my own team, from the jail, Mr. Sanders from probation, Corona Domingo from pretrial services. All of these people are in the room together, and they meet 3 times a week, and for several hours each meeting, to discuss who's in that jail and how we can reduce that population. And I was pleased with that. I thought, wow, this is great. They got all the leaders here, and this is really going to work out. And they've been meeting since 2018, for 3 years. And when I asked them what they were doing, they said, well, what's the results? What have you guys accomplished anything? Because this really it's really encouraged me. And they said, well, yeah, we think we've done well. We reduced the jail man hours, inmate man hours by 50,000 a year. And that sounds pretty impressive, doesn't it? If you did the math, it's less than 42 a year. That's less than 1 a week. And I pointed this out to the judges and to Mr. Sanders and others. And I says, this isn't much of this is nothing to toot your horn at. You've got some of the biggest brains in this community in here working on reform, and it's not happening. I offered body-worn cameras, and the probation department said, well, there's really no proof that they work. And I sat there and I said, wait a minute, just Google body-worn cameras. There's stats all across this country. 95% of the people on body-worn cameras, on ankle monitors, he said ankle monitors don't work. He says 95% of the people on ankle monitors have no issues. I told them, we have people in my jail who are sick, with mental health issues, who are drug addicts, low-level misdemeanors, non-violent felonies, and they've been there for months because they can't afford a bond. They don't have the money. And this was something I cried about back in 2015 and 16, was that the size of my wallet shouldn't dictate whether or not I should stay in jail, but it does. If I commit a homicide today, I'm going to be out in 5 hours. Guarantee it. You know, we have people over there who shoplifted, and they're stuck there for months. There's been a lot about the deaths in our jail. The last 2 deaths. One was right here at Cerrito. I'll say young man, he was 38 years old. He was arrested in August of 2022. His charges were felony criminal trespass. Sounds pretty serious, right? What makes criminal trespass a felony is if you continue to trespass. In other words, if I call the police and say, she's here again, she's here again. This was a 39-year-old man whose 80-something-year-old father and mother could not tolerate him anymore. He had 0 history of drug abuse. He had 0 violent crime history. He had a mental health issue. He suffered from, and I can't say the word because it's too big for my vocabulary, but basically an eating disorder. And because he was a nuisance at his father, the 6th time he was called, the young officers came out, arrested him, put him in our jail. On August the 31st, he's there in front of a judge, initial appearances, and the judge says, his defense attorney raises the issue, Your Honor, I think we have a competency issue here. And I think we need to have a Rule 11, which is a hearing that says whether or not you're competent or not. And then if they find you incompetent, then you get another 4 months of another hearing that says we can either restore you to competency or we can't. It's the RTC, Restored Competency Program. This defense attorney says, this man here is suffering from mental health issues. Here's his doctor's paperwork on all his mental health disorders. I think we need to hold the Rule 11 to see if he's competent. County Attorney's Office says, absolutely, I agree, you can see it, he's crazy. Judge says, I agree. We'll hold the Rule 11 hearing on him, and we're going to schedule it for March 30th. 6 months. This man sits in jail for 6 months. If he'd have pled guilty right then for the criminal trespass, he'd have been out. But what happens to him is, before his hearing in March, December 15th, we find him in his cell, collapsed. Get him to the hospital. He passes. They do an autopsy, and in his stomach is pencils, razors, rubber shoe, pieces of adhesive, a chip bag, Lay's potato chip bag. No chips, just the Lay's in his stomach. And his feces. He died. Less than a week after his arrest in August, in early September, a second individual. This individual was arrested for third-degree burglary. Another horrible crime. Okay, here's what third-degree burglary is. It's a burglary of a fenced commercial yard. So if your business is fenced, and I climb the fence and steal the bicycle that's leaning up against that wall and take off with it, I have committed burglary, 3rd degree. That's what this man did at 3 in the morning. He too suffers from great mental health disorders. He too has an eating disorder. We even have mental health paperwork that was telling him, please stop eating your feces, it's not good for you. I mean, now this man had a significant drug history, but again, no violent crime. Again, the defense attorney says, Your Honor, this is that initial appearance in September. Your Honor, this man's crazy. I think we need to see if he's competent to stand trial. Prosecutor agrees. We need this guy to be evaluated. And judge says, I agree. September. We're going to hold the competency hearing, Rule 11, in April. January 6th, this man too died from eating things he shouldn't have been eating. These are people who have bonds of probably $100 to $200. These are people who, if they'd just pled guilty, they'd have probably been out before they ever passed away. I'm hearing a lot of rhetoric about wraparound services. We have a lot of people in my jail who need wraparound services, housing, substance abuse treatment, mental health. I agree. We do have those people, and they do need it. And you see all the homeless camps. But what my fear is that those who are telling us that we need it, they're telling us we need it at the jail. So to me, that's saying, if you need help, we're going to arrest you first. I think we need those things too, but they don't need to be at our jail. They need to be at our crisis response center. Dr. Ann Balfour runs a crisis response center for those who suffer from mental health and substance abuse. And she does a great job. She sees 1,000 people a week in her facility. In and out. In and out. They have a courtroom with the same Superior Court judges that sentenced these two to go to competency hearings that could have said, I think you're crazy. I think you need help. I'm going to send you to the mental health court and to Dr. Balfour at the Crisis Response Center. Instead, they elected, I'm going to put you in my jail. I don't know how to work these judges out. I am not happy with them. They are not happy with me. We have constant talks about this. But when you have the probation, the director of your adult probation office sit there in open forum on a public, on TV and says, if you have a drug abuse, substance abuse problem, the best place for you is jail. There's something wrong there.
Absolutely.
And I have no power over those judges. I offer them ankle monitors because we know it costs us $122 a day for somebody to be in my jail, and if I give you an ankle monitor, it's $15 a day. And you get to say who's on there. I know the sheriff never can tell anyone who's in his jail or who can be in his jail. That's not my job, and it shouldn't be. But I should be able to come up with some programs to help us reduce that population. The fourth leg of reform. But when you have those in positions like judges or probation department, who constantly just, I think it's frustration on their part. I'm sure they're short-staffed too. We're all short-staffed, right? Restaurants, grocery stores, cops, hospitals, everywhere. And I think they get frustrated with all the homeless camps and they don't know what to do with it. You have a business out here and there's homeless camps parked on your business. You get there at 6 in the morning, they're sleeping on your doorstep. That is very frustrating. So who do they call? 911? And the first answer is, put them in jail. And let's get some wraparound services at the jail. I'm telling them, no. No, get your wraparound services in your community first. Then we can get them at the jail. The jail is quite an issue, and you probably heard me talk about, or you will be hearing me talk about, we need a new jail. And there's a lot of rhetoric about the condition of this jail. Water, literally. Like, I've got video, I've got a PowerPoint that I could have showed you, but these lights, imagine these lights, you're in your jail cell, these lights, there's water, not dripping, pouring out of them, just pouring. We have elevator doors. There's 4 elevator doors in this one lobby area. For the 8, it goes up 8 stories, but it's for the 4th floor. All 4 elevators. If you've ever seen those fountains at the mall where they're kind of like pretty rocks and water just flows over them, these shiny silvery doors on these elevators, every single one of them was that. Just water pouring down them. You have plumbing traps, little doors this high, maybe a foot wide, and you open up and you can. We have 29 of them. All 29 of them leak, but it's not like you and I have a leak. When we have a leak, it goes drip, drip, drip. This is a leak that just runs, constant, and so they go and try to repair it. But remember what they're working with. 12-inch thick concrete walls with rebar. We have showers, men's showers, overhang of the facility. It was drawn out where if this was the tower, like this, you had this overhang. And this overhang is about 20 feet by 20 feet. And I walked under it one day because I was looking at this repair job, and they used 1-inch plywood to seal up this bottom piece of this overhang. And I said, well, what's above that? 44 men showering. If they knew that, they probably could have jumped up and down. Of course, they would have probably killed themselves because it's about 2 stories up. But those are, they're everyday issues over there. When I came into the office, we had over 3,000 work orders to the facility management crew at the county to say, fix these. Could be anything. Could have been leaks. Could have been my desk drawer, the lock doesn't work. And trust me, remember those guards are locked in there, so they gotta have somewhere to put their stuff. So those locks are important. Just little things, but maybe a window's cracked. A door handle is busted. Over 3,000 of those, and some of them had been the same work order submitted 8 to 10 times. And so staff, guess what they do? Give up on it. You build apathy when you're not going to be responsive. And so they just kind of say, why should I put in this work order? Nothing ever happens. And that's on my team. Well, the team I inherited, but we took care of some of that, but it also was a reflection of facilities management. And maybe it was staffing, I don't know. All I know is the work wasn't getting done. Today we're under 200 of those work orders. That is a little city over there. It is the worst conditions you can imagine to work in and to live in. I probably have 100 inmates on the floor sleeping every night. We had a story in August out of Albuquerque where they had a jail that had been overcrowded, people sleeping on the floor, short staff, officers having to work overtime. Our officers work sometimes 16-hour shifts. Inmates getting tense because they can't get any time out in the yards. They're locked down 22, 23 hours a day. We do the same. You are sitting on a powder keg. Albuquerque had a riot, and in 3 days' time, 34 people were killed. 3 of them were corrections officers. I took that to the Board of Supervisors and said, I need a new jail. Not because of the decay and the lack of maintenance and the staffing issues. Those are other issues. Those are other problems. But it really is the design of the jail. When I started here in Pima County, well, first of all, I started in '83, And I actually was a cop in El Paso and started my career in 1975. And I moved to Pima County because my wife kept chasing me. That's not true. I was chasing her. I moved to Pima County. I worked at the old jail before this one was built. And here's what that jail was. If this was the jail cell, it had nothing but bars from floor to ceiling, and this was all bunk beds, maybe for 100 to 200 men or women. And you had 4 of them. So I would walk out and run down what we call cell A, the walkway, cut across, come down cell B's, cut across, come down cell C, cut across cell D. That was my rounds. And you would look every half hour to an hour, whatever the time frame was that you could do it, you'd walk that round. The inmates would throw stuff at you, you'd throw stuff back. It just was a game. And who was in control? So we did that every 30, 45 minutes and went back to our offices. And that 29 minutes, those inmates knew that, oh, here they come again. The person in control was the guy with the most cigarettes. That's really how it worked. So we decided, Pima County did, we need a new jail. A new generation of thinking for corrections facilities. And it was called direct supervision. What the simplest way I can tell you why this came about was, and it works, is we looked at what was going on in our jails. You're walking around, they're in control. We want you to have the most cigarettes. We want you, the CO, the corrections officer, in the middle of that cell. And you take responsibility for those people. You provide them security. The gangs and those things aren't in control, you are. But to do that, you had to make it manageable. You couldn't do it where, so they built this tower. There were 4 floors. Each floor had 4 pods. Each pod had 18 doors downstairs, 18 doors upstairs, 36 inmates, 1 CO. That quickly changed. You know, we're going to double bunk them. So it's now 1 CO for 72 inmates. That wasn't bad. It sounds horrible, right? But you still could get the job done. But now, fast forward to 2005, 2006, they say, you know, we need to make some expansions here. We need a bigger jail. So they did. But to do it, they decided that we're going to go backwards in time. And they went back to, not bars, but cells or pods that house 200, 250 inmates. That's what I have today. You cannot provide a secure, safe environment for your employee or for that inmate with a situation like that. Has nothing to do with the maintenance, although that's a problem. Has nothing to do with staffing, and that too is a problem. But it definitely has to do with the way you all have kids, grandbabies. If you wanted to you hired Chris Nanos to babysit for you. Chris Nanos is sitting in the living room with his little Nintendo game, and I got a little baby monitor here, right? And the baby's in the room. Baby screams or cries. I go in and check on them, rub their belly, turn them over, come back. I'm babysitting. Or I'm doing that and the baby doesn't cry. But I think, oh, 30 minutes, I'm going to go crack that door open, look in, yep, sleeping, come back to my Nintendo. Do you know what my COs do? Every 30 minutes, they walk by these doors that have a window about the side, about this wide, right here, 4 inches. And they're about 3 feet tall. And they walk into that window and they look in the room where we used to have 2 people. Now you have a dozen people. And you're trying to see everybody and someone undercovers, you go, okay, it's okay. And you go. But they have to do that in every 30 minutes. But sometimes we're so sort of short-staffed. They control 2 pods. So now you're doing 2 pods every 30 minutes. Again, you're losing control. who's in control of the facility. And those inmates, I get it, there's a lot of bad people in there. I don't want my tax dollars going toward jail. I would much rather have roads or parks or swimming pools. But my goodness, every half century or so, maybe you need to buy a new jail. And so that's my push to the Board of Supervisors. I don't think they're going to buy it. I think they'll make it a political football. I'm fortunate that Jan Lesher, our county administrator, is much brighter and smarter than me. And she says, Chris, we're going to get this through. We'll do a referendum. We'll do a vote. I said, boy, Jan, I don't want to vote a referendum. It should never. You have 5 people who have been in power and elected to do a job. And every time there's a hard decision, they got to take it to the voters. You're kicking that can down the road. If I had all the money today to build the jail, it'd still take us 5 to 10 years to build it. So we need to do something now. I throw my hands up at a lot of things, but we just keep marching forward because we got to do the right thing, right? That's what I tell my team. That's all we got to do. Just do the right thing. How hard is that?
Wow.
And you know what? That doesn't mean I'm not going to make mistakes. I make them all the time, but they're mistakes to the head, never of the heart. And that's where we have to be. We need to get that board to make a decision now. But realistically, I lean on Ms. Lesher. She's got a good committee going. I think the Blue Ribbon Kid Committee will come out with some positive statements or remarks to give to that board, and hopefully the board will get it to the voters, and ultimately we'll get something done. They're going to talk to you about the cost. It's like they're going on 380 to 400 million. Could be right. I'm not a construction guy. The only thing they can go on is the most recent jail is in San Diego, and they just approved it, and they thought it was about 2,000 at jail, 380 to 400 million dollars. Of course, California's expense is different. I will challenge you to do this. Go in tonight, look up Google and look up Australian new prison, and you'll find a prison there that was just built in Australia, and it's the new generation jail. It's that concept of the babysitter, and you have 24/7 watching that kid. No monitors, not playing Nintendo, because they don't have cell doors. They're all in an open bay. And what they have is, they don't have 12-inch thick walls that with rebar that every time they have a leak in the wall, they punch a hole. Oh, that's not where it is. They punch a hole. We got 3 or 4 holes in these pods because they can't find the leak, and then they finally find it and fix it. What cost is that? Technology. This jail, this prison, but it could be a jail, has office cubicles. How expensive are those versus a 12-inch thick wall? And besides that, when was the last time anybody saw a story or newscast about some inmate scratching his way out of a wall of a jail? That's, I guess in the Westerns they did that. My point is we have the right people there who understand construction, understand those costs, and I think if they do it right, they can do exactly what Australia did or something similar. What Australia did was they got rid of jail doors. By the way, jail doors, I had to fix a lock on the jail door, cell door, deadbolt. Go to Ace, get a deadbolt, what, $10? $1,800. I had to replace 3 doors in Ajo at their jail. How much is a jail door? $26,000 each. I wanted a detox unit, 30 beds, because we don't have a detox unit. Those are for those people who come into our jail in those first 4 or 5 days. It's critical. They need to be detoxed and watched. And we have like no beds for that. So I asked, well, give me 30 beds. The estimate came out, $34 million.
Oh my goodness.
I want to get rid of the chance for you to hang yourself. They have what they call non-ligature jail furniture. You put it in all your pods. One pod, $1 million. And I got 28 more to go. We did one. It's just, so I'm constantly saying, I think you're just throwing good money after bad. Let's bite that bullet Let's get this done, and let's really talk about real reform. Every day I pull my hair out. I used to kid. I got in jail for selling anybody interested. I'll give you $1 because it is a real mess over there. And I have some young men and women who do great work. We hire them at 18 years old, 19 years old. I just went to an academy class the other day. 72, so that's good for our numbers. We're getting our numbers up. 72 of them. These are young kids, and we're going to stick them in the middle of a pot with some pretty seriously bad people. But they do a great job every day. Every day. So I'm very blessed with my team. We've done a lot. We built some substations. We got a substation on the south side that needed to be built because the station where they were was an hour's drive to their districts. It made no sense. You want faster response times and more police presence. Before we hire more cops, let's get them where they're supposed to be first. So we've done that. Vail was going at 19% the last decade. 3 points, which these cops do, they were declining their population by 7.5%. Yet the past administration put 10 new cops down there. I said that's not where they're going. I need them in Vail, and I need a substation because Vail is growing exponentially. And besides that, the cops at 3 points, there's 66 of them. You just need to move them from Keno Boulevard and move them into the center of their district so that they can. So those things are happening. I know I didn't make Sharon happy because that was Sharon's area. She felt I was robbing her 10 new deputies that the last sheriff gave them. But I told Jen, I don't make decisions based on politics. We make decisions of where our resources go based on the need, the biggest need. And so we did some realignment. We've done a lot of things, but we got a long way to go. So I think I've taken a lot of time, haven't I?
You took it right about it. It's funny. You and I passed in El Paso. I was there in '72, so we passed each other along the way. The one thing, the question I wanted to ask you was Laura Conover, Pima County Attorney, was here a couple weeks ago, and she was frustrated. It sounds like you are too, with funding from the state. It trickles down very slowly. How is your funding going, and how are you paying your officers a reputable wage compared to other states?
So I don't compare myself to other states. That was always a gimmick. Hey, this agency, Albuquerque, makes more than us, or El Paso, or New York, or even Phoenix. I said, quit it. I don't recruit in Phoenix. You don't see posters and billboards. Hey, we'll hire you for $15,000. Come. That's not the game. I want officers, my deputies. I want them to be from this area. They take some ownership. They take some pride. That it is their. They live here. They work here. They play here. This is their home. I compete against Tucson police and Chad Casmar. If you don't know the man, he's a great man. He's just, again, so much a bigger brain than me by far. But he is really been just a buddy of mine. And I'll tell you, they were making a lot more than us. And I told the board and I told Jan, I don't care what you pay me, I just want parity so I can recruit. Well, Sarita makes more money than my deputies. Oro Valley makes more money than my deputies. Oro Valley and Sarita hire one deputy at a time, one officer at a time. They're not that big an agency. I have to hire 40 to 50 just to stay even. And who else has to? Tucson Police. So that's who I compare myself. We have some good news. They did CBIZ is a major corporation that did a study for us, a paid compensation study, and it's looking promising. I think by the end of this week I'll hear more definitive, but my staff is hopeful. Let me say this about pay. Pay is really critical for today's world if you're short-staffed, right? We got to get you in the door. But if they're coming in the door, my attrition rate is 6.8 per pay period, which is what it was when I came. 6.8 per pay period. That means I'm losing 6.8 corrections officers every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Deputies were over 3, and I was losing 3 deputies every 2 weeks. Today, in fact, actually just last week, we keep eyes on these, our corrections officers are at 3.5. That is the lowest they've been in decades. That is a tough job. Young men and women go there to move on. It's a stepping stone. I encourage them to do that. I want them to become cops in the street. But that's a great place to learn, because you learn so many skills that be able to de-escalate. Remember, they're in a pod with all these bad guys. They don't have any weapons, no tasers, no nothing. The only weapon they have is they get a gab. And they are very good and polished at it. And that's what we want in our streets. So we steal from our own people, but we constantly tell them, here's a good starting point. Come in here and we get them there. So we've seen some great numbers with our attrition. Our deputies are 1.89 as of last week. That's a good number too. More importantly, we're seeing our applicant pools numbers going up. And I wish I could say it was all because of me. That's not. But it is, I think I'm hoping that somewhere this world has turned around and young men and women are saying, I think I need a job. Because we just weren't seeing it. We would hold jobs. When I applied here, they had like 10 jobs and there were 2,000 people applying. Wow. Now we hold applicants, we have hundreds of jobs. Literally we're 100 people short in the jail. We got hundreds of jobs and we get 10 people apply. So we've done great with our recruiting efforts in that. And like I said, we have an academy class of 78 right now, and in about 3 weeks we'll get another 20-some added to that. But what you got to understand is with that is through attrition and everything else, to be a deputy, it's 40 weeks of training. So that means I have to hire, if I'm going to lose one a week, right? 1.892. So if I'm going to lose one a week, I got to hire 41, and all 41 have to pass just to gain one body in 10 months' time. So it's a process. You're not going to catch up. That's some of the challenges we faced when I came in. We had some people who thought it was best if we didn't have an academy, and they canceled the academy to make money and to turn to their board and say, look, I give you all this money back. Well, that was a problem because now we're faced with it. How do you catch up? It is a challenge. But we're doing it. It's just taking a lot of work, a lot of time. When I came on, we had, in 2016 when I left, there were 1,686 butts and seats, employees. That's deputies, corrections, civilian. When I came here in January 2021, we were down to 1,282. This is 30-some% loss. It's hard to catch up, but I'm positive. We're getting there. Like I say, these larger classes are helping a lot. So.
Okay, let's open it up to the floor. Does anybody have a question? Chris, I think you had one, and then you're next.
Chris, did anybody tell you that you look like Jimmy Carter? I guess that's a yes.
There's a lady, there she is. I came in here and that's the first thing she asked me.
That is a compliment.
Well,
good looking man. So.
And what he did after his presidency has been absolutely amazing to me, having come from another part of the world to America as a young man. But yeah, I've had that compliment before, but coming from you, I'll be able to, when somebody else says, well, believe it or not,
It's Sheriff
it was Sheriff Nanos that also said the same thing. So
Let's let him answer.
So those are community policing efforts, and we are very, first of all, volunteerism, and I am again blessed. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has countywide over 400 volunteers. Your SAVs here make up about 100 of them.
Right.
But I have SAVs in Tucson, I have SAVs in Ajo, I also have my search and rescue volunteers and my mounted posse volunteers. But more to your point about being involved with the community and that, and one of the 4 points that you mentioned and I didn't cover, I do have a community advisory review board that was set up the first week we were in office. That was easy to do. These are men and women from, we went to the college because we thought they too are a part of our community. So we got some young people in there, and we have people from Green Valley, from all walks of life, and And I tell them, this is your board. I do not want to influence you. What I need you to do is look at what we do and come and tell me how we can do it better. And they're tremendous people. They do a great job. So that exists. As far as having community policing efforts, so we get a battle going with my chiefs and that. And you know, it's understandable. Our resources are thin, right? Our staffing levels are pretty short. And so if I'm going to have a community policing team, we just created our first community engagement team with about 8 officers and a sergeant. Where do I get them from? That means I'm robbing them from the field. If I take them from the field, how much does that hurt the field to be able to do what we're really supposed to be doing? That's respond to calls. So it is a juggling act, but I tell my chiefs this: if you don't do community policing, you're in a you can't afford not to. You have to do that. That's how we really impact our community. Remember, the whole goal is, and I have to remind myself too every day, is to keep our community safe, to stop crime. And how do you do that? Being involved and engaged with your community. Being involved and engaged with your young ones, those at the schools, school resource officers. I talked about it. I have 14. I need 33. I'm always yelling, I need more bodies. But there's a cost to it. So I have to juggle and play the priority game. But yeah, that pot is, they're cutting my budget now, and it's not going to be enough. And they'll hear from me. But I understand they too have their needs, and I have to be reasonable about it.
Is there anything on the website or our website where that people could go and look for volunteerism or information?
Absolutely. I would tell you, look at our community resources section and just call them and they'll help you out. Right here in Green Valley, though, this Lieutenant Hill, you just walk in the door over there and he'll point you right, he'll hand walk you over to their SADs here in Green Valley, because they're tremendous out here for us. They do so much.
Goes back to the school shooting situations, and I was wondering whether the schools have supplied you and all the rest of the other departments with the plan of the building, the school building, because you can load it digitally into your equipment, so whoever arrives there can see where the door is.
So these are, I tried to give you about this much of what we're covering with the schools and all of those things. We had breakout committees and they covered all of those things. And we understand, because some of the needs at the schools are quite costly. Some are arguing about, well, do I put a key, like the fire department has at the front door in lock boxes for the cops? Is that the best way? Or how about electronic mag card and all our doors? Well, those are millions of dollars. Some of these schools are very old. So, they have to play with that too. What we in law enforcement are trying to do, and Senator Kelly in his office is a big help. You asked about dollars from Laura, and I'll get to that. He's helping us with a lot of funding for supplying our schools with the things they need. I've got a budget. We'll take care of ourselves, but those schools do need funding.
You need the plan of the schools.
We have those too.
Know what rooms and how to get in and
Those are there, and they are on our computers, our MDCs. One of the things about the schools too, though, is they battle the same thing. Do I spend money on security, gates, bars, locks, or do I spend money on my teachers and hiring them? It is really a juggling act for them. What we're trying to do is we just want them equipped for. It's going to sound terrible, but a lot of the kids who died at Uvalde and other shootings have died from lack of treatment to their wounds in a timely manner. My officers carry what is known as an IFAC. It's basically a military first aid kit. And they like them so much they carry one in their personal vehicle and one in their company car, the patrol car. Reason being is part of this special response of all these active shooters is we're going to do just like you have on your phone for weather alerts or amber alerts. We're going to have a system in place where I can hit one button and every cop in this valley. See, we're short, Tucson Police is short, but together we know we can be a big workforce. So we're gonna have a one button. So if you're off duty, I live right next to a high school. I should be able to respond, but if I don't know, and so that's the part of the plan too, is quick
You do
response.
know that with AK, whatever those things are, if they get hit by them, there's not much
So-
medically you can do.
So
I'm a
there's,
retired EMT,
so we have training with our first aid kits that basically do our plugging holes to stop the bleeding. The heavy duty gauzes, you know, it's, so all of my deputies have what we call long rifles, similar to an AR-15. It's an automatic weapon. But Tucson police only had, like, any given time, 10 or 15 out on the street. We told them, you gotta have long rifles. Everybody, you can't expect your team to run in and face up one of those with this. Can't. So that was part of it. Well, the schools, they need, what does the nurse's office have? Band-Aids and you know, aspirin. They need to be equipped too. So some of the funding that we're asking for from Senator Kelly's office is to fund the schools with first aid kits. 'Cause,
We got time for two more questions, so here and then here. We're going to go on. Becky, and then
This segues on
Arlene.
the school question. If a citizen, if we see a red flag on social media, something that we just are uncomfortable with, who do we contact?
911.
Who do we contact?
911.
911.
Because we have at our abilities to look at that and do tracking on the social media. We partner with our federal government partners too, and we have a lot of resources out there that can track this stuff down. We had an incident where a young man way out in Marana posted a picture of him on Facebook where he's got an AR-15 slung across his chest, and he's typed in, "F this school, I'll see you in the morning." And the school knew of it because all the kids knew about it, but the school didn't call us. They called their counselors and then called the parents. It's like, no, we need to call this kid in. The schools are acting appropriate. They too don't want to wreck some kid's life because he made a silly threat. But in today's world, that's not a silly threat. So we need to do something. And it's not about wrecking his life. I know that sometimes our judicial system seems that it destroys people's lives. That prison to pipeline probably was some reality there. But I would tell you this, let's get that kid into the system, because the system can at least mandate he and his parents to get the mental health help he really needs, where the school doesn't have that authority. I don't have that authority.
Thank you.
Arlene?
So, I appreciate your comments about the jail. I'm a nurse and I work at the jail, mostly in the infirmary. Your comments are so right on, and I appreciate that you care and you're working to solve the issues. Not quite fast enough to my liking, because every day I encounter an infirmary full of detoxers, critically detoxers. I had one that just about died on me the other day. We got him out, thank God. But and then an infirmary full of severely mentally ill patients, who, by the way, often scream all day long. So, but that being said, I'm curious. Does your office have much interface with NAFCARE?
Good point. I wish I had more interface with NAFCARE. First of all, NAFCARE came in because of some problems with Centurion. And we can get into those or not. But NAFCARE came in and they took over basically methadone treatment for our inmates, which was not being handled properly with Centurion. They've done a good job. I know their executives. They came to me about 2 weeks ago and wanted me to manage their contract. That contract is managed by Dr. Garcia and the county's health department. Trust me, I think they're better equipped at that than the sheriff. But I told them, if you're running into some headbutting or something, give me a holler. Maybe I can referee or intervene or do something. But yeah, so far I've been impressed with them. I think their hearts are in the right place and they want to do well. I don't know. They struggle with some of the bureaucracy that this county has, and that's a problem.
Are you carrying all NAMCAN?
Every correction officer in the place has Narcan on.
Okay.
Yeah.
We use it frequently.
Let me tell you something about that Narcan though, and here's my biggest fear. So we all know fentanyl's a bad drug, right? But we're now starting to see Tranq, a new drug, another animal substance, tranquilizer. And it's coming from the East Coast, it's coming into our county, we've already seen some. It is not treatable with Narcan. It is not an opiate. The Narcan can reverse the effects quickly of somebody with opiate. That's one of the things, and I'll give you credit because your team's a big part of it. The media is pretty quick on telling you the number of deaths we've had, but they don't tell you about the 34 inmates that we gave Narcan to in just the last 2 months and saved their lives. They don't tell you about the inmate who probably last week hung himself and we got there in time to save his life, or the other one who attempted suicide a few weeks ago and saved them. Those are efforts by my team that never get into the front pages. But I want you to know, I think you have a very caring team over there of young men and women who have their hearts are in the right place. They just have a lot of challenges. It is a tough job.
We think we have a very good sheriff right here, and let's give him a big thanks for all the work.
You're welcome. I'm going to tell you this, because I don't mean to be rude. I have one of my sergeants was involved in a motorcycle accident on my way up here, so I need to get to the hospital. So I won't be around, but please take advantage of that. Give me a call, text me or whatever, and I hope that's okay.
That's just fine. Yes, absolutely.